Hey everyone, and welcome to Tabletop Obscura, and to Let's Build a Super Dungeon. How is everyone this morning? Because it is this morning, here in the wonderful land of Australia. Ugh. Don't mind me as I'm getting comfortable. So, what are we doing here today? Because I'm pretty much just going to jump straight into it. We are going to be building a super dungeon. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, we are going to be building 10 floors of dungeon. Each floor is going to be themed a little bit differently, but we are going to have a couple of rules. And for the next stream, I will actually have something that I can put up on the stream to actually show what the rules are. But the rules are, each floor will have 10 rooms, 10 encounters. 4 will be low encounters, 4 will be moderate encounters, and then 2 will be severe encounters. This means every floor, every level, will be a level for the party. Now, next rule. All of the low and moderate encounters must fit on an A4 sheet of paper. And we're going to be doing that by using Dungeon Draft. Because they have that little option. So each room has to fit into that. Now, I can see that Kilchrono is in the chat. The easiest way to do this, of course, would be to simply just have a bunch of blank rooms. Empty, blank rooms that people can just run up and hit people. But I think that's boring, and I think we can do better. And in light of that, I want to do a little bit of interesting things with the terrain, with how the rooms are actually set out. I thought it might trigger someone with that one. And even with the creatures. Now, what I need from you, chat, to begin with, is I kind of just want an overall theme to begin with for our first floor of this dungeon. This will be for level 1 characters. If I don't get much of a response, I'm probably just going to go with a default dungeon, or I'm going to start tapping the botanical bestiary and do like a plant foresty level, but I'm not sure. So, chat, what do you think I should do for the first level? What do you think should be a theme? It doesn't have to be an element. It could be just a general creature type. Though I may have to veto some considering levels and stuff. But I am happy to do pretty much anything. Water? Oh god, so we're starting off strong then? You know I don't have access to the Rage of Elements monsters yet, right? Because they've added like I think another 2 or 3 pages for monsters and stuff. And ice, I can work with that. Because the monsters we will be using will be from the Paizo Bestiary, so Bestiaries 1, 2, and 3, the Botanical Bestiary, and also the Battle Zoo Bestiary. So hopefully we should be able to get enough to cover all of that. Now, water dungeons. There is a classic sentiment when it comes to water dungeons, and I will put the blame squarely on Zelda for this, in that they tend to be a little bit harder and a little bit more complex. But we are going to do it anyway. Ooh, I like that. So, Sunken Ruin Temple. Alright, well, cave brush, that. Make level 1 all about shallow water and level 2 deeper water. Okay. Okay, so I have used the classic door traps in the past. As in, it's a fake door and there's a trap behind it of some sort when the players actually force it open. It was actually surprisingly effective, and it made the players paranoid of all things going forward. Just thinking, considering. Now, one of the things that I have to be very mindful of is the space that we're actually working with. Because if this is an entrance room, then we gotta introduce it. Now, how much of a Zelda style do we want to do with this? That is the big question I currently have. At the moment, I'm not 100% sure. Because I have a couple of ideas rolling around in my head for what the overall story for the dungeon will be. And some of it's going to be a little bit extra dimensional, a little bit, out there. Because there's... See, one of the things I really want to dig into with this whole concept that I'm working with is a lot of super dungeons have this tendency to be bound to a specific geographical location. But when you're talking about high fantasy games like Pathfinder 2nd Edition or D&D 5e, you really have options to really dig into the extra magical power and the ambience that a world can have. One of my problems with Abomination Vaults is that it doesn't screw around enough with extra dimensional space. So it's bigger on the inside, it leads to different planes and different areas. But something I really love, and I've been really fiddling around with video games recently, has been games like Moonlighter and Dead Cells, where every time you play, the layout of the dungeon changes. And that's part of the reason why I want to do, like, every encounter room can fit on an A4 sheet of paper. The idea being is that every time you go to dungeon, you can just rearrange the encounter rooms as you see fit. Does that make sense? Or am I just crazy? I could just be crazy, and that's fine. Now, water temple, so we don't want to be using things, we don't want to be using wooden statues, we want to be using stone ones. Well, that's one of the suggestions where, like with what Kilcorna said, where it's level 1 will have shallow water. So we'll have a lot of creatures that can kind of sit and be around water. So more amphibious than aquatic. And surprisingly, there's a lot more at early levels than you might think. We're gonna go for a blue color, because I'm a basic bitch like that. We'll make that a little bit bigger. I'm going to toggle off the shadows for now. Nope, you're just going to stay? Fair. There it is. Now, if we're going for something a little bit more natural in the first level, then one of the things that we'll definitely have to work with is natural for the first level, and then as we get into the lower levels, it'll be a little bit more built up and built out. If that's the case, then we're gonna have to have a lot more natural things going on. But if this is being built out cavern, something to think about is that someone has come through and has built things up. But instead of being finely wrought, it'll just be more basic things. One of the most underutilized things in Pathfinder 2, fucking pillars. However, it can make or break an encounter for anyone involved. Because one of the things a lot of people don't remember is that using the take cover action, when there is actual applicable cover you can use, increases your circumstance bonus to armor class by +4. Like, that's absolutely massive. And we'll go back to here, because I just got an idea. Iron that out just a speck. Now, part of the reason why I am expanding that out just a little bit is because if you don't, players will ask, because they always do, am I going to be squished? Is that going to be crowded? Exactly. And in light of that, we're going to put something right there. Now, honestly, that's actually a good starting first room. Yeah, exactly. Because some cover won't actually let you do a stealth check to hide. Otherwise, if you're using greater cover, you can absolutely use it to hide and move around. Now, I'm actually going to change that for something else. So I know what I want. I want a brazier. Dish. No, not a fish. Though that will be helpful later on. Full length. There we go. So we have that object. A creative stream, yes. At least a creative outlet. Something that I'm not strictly doing for work, but I am doing for fun. Now, what I want to do is I want to have blue fire then. But I don't think that's gonna happen. Alright, where's my scatter tool? Also, the music we're currently listening to is Michael Gelfi, just on his YouTube. If the style is familiar to you, that's because I mostly use his stuff for my streams as well when I'm doing the actual play stuff. And I will say, I do have a purpose and a reason for doing all this, but even though, if you have any questions about the game, like any of the actual plays I'm currently running, feel free to ask them. Or just any questions in general. Then we switch to scatter. Paddle. Okay. Bridge. See, something with Dungeon Craft that took me a little while to figure out is the fuzzy exact thing. If you have it as fuzzy, it will just grab objects related to your search inquiry. But if you have it at exact, it'll be the exact thing you're looking for. Your mileage will vary. Now, we want some moss, not a moose. Switch the object tool for that. Snap. His life will always find a way. And where is my water brush? I mean, there we have it for the first one. Surprisingly quick. So the idea here is that I'll move this over to Foundry in a second, but the idea here is that the players can come down through here, and depending on what they see in the room, they'll be able to take cover to hide. They'll be able to go from point to point if there's a rogue in the party, they can get it. They can get around to the pillars and strike out from cover. That's essentially the idea anyway. But where's my cave brush? There it is. Nope, can't dig that out any further. Alright. Save as. This will not be hoist the colors, this will be that. Oh good, you can't see my folders and stuff. They're not a mess, I swear it. Superdungeon. Level 1. Shallow water. God, if I'm doing a water dungeon, then I could absolutely just use it for hoist the colors, couldn't I? Absolutely could. Not the intention, I swear it. Room 1, entry low. And then we export Universal VTT. And now, I'm not seeing anything quite yet. I just want to make sure that's all working. All right. That'll switch over. Excellent. And now we're on Foundry, because I'm going to do the whole thing from here. Scenes. Create scene. Room 1. Entry. Low. I need to activate a module, because I forgot to do that. What do I need? Universal. Also, all these maps that I'm currently going to be doing up, they will all be available on the Patreon, because I'm starting the Patreon back up. Choose a file. I am trying to be more active. I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of weeks back, and they were like, you do treat your stream a lot like more of a hobby. But if you actually want it to be self-sufficient, then you really need to take the streaming thing a lot more seriously. And you know what? They were absolutely correct. You don't get to see the, like, back-end let's design a thing. Alright. this is the problem with the whole universal map import. It works well, but it's never perfect. So we'll connect that. I might actually activate another module that gives me more options with the walls. Because I feel like this is going to be an ongoing problem. I will say, in fairness, the process that I'm doing with this is going to be different from other terms of like dungeon design and adventure design. Looks wall enhancement. So we'll say if you're running Foundry for anything that uses walls and stuff, or just most things to do with Foundry in general, if it's one of Monk's modules, grab it and use it. Because Monk stuff is absolutely amazing. The extra functionality that it brings to anything. Alright. That. I'll pause that just because I don't think I'm going to be having any interactions with players. Now, the big question, the important question. Creatures. Now, for this, I'm going to be using the guidelines as set down in the Game Mastery Guide, for the most part. Now, this is level 1. Because this is the entry room for the dungeon, and players will probably end up visiting it more than once, we want it to be a relatively easy room. Not a lot of stuff going on, just give players a taste of the things of what is to come. And because of that, it is a Grindylows of Bogarts. I like Grindylows personally. Give me a second, I forgot to hide the interface. There we go. In Hoist the Colors, I use Grindylows as the opening encounter. We'll go Grindylow. Grindylow is level 0. So that'll be good. Look, I don't know why more people don't use them. Like, look. I get that they're... I mean, let's look at their stat block. They're amphibious aberrations. So this means you can have them in the water, you can have them around the water, you can have them near. Like, if you send your players into a basement's flooded, you can put Grindylows there. They could be on a lakeside. Like, there's no specifications for salt or fresh water. Now, one of the reasons why some people do not like to use them, or some GMs don't like to use them, is because they have an attack of opportunity. Now, they can only use the attack of opportunity with their tentacles. But their tentacles do have the built-in grab, which, it should be pointed out, they can't use as a part of a reaction. They can't use the grab trait, they can't use the chirp trait. Because grab means you need to have a second action to use. But I'm honestly not sure why people don't use them more. Now, let's actually figure out if we can have a couple of extra options than the Grindylow. Because we are gonna have them. But we're gonna look for traits. Amphibious. Carnivores. They're gremlins. I've never used them before, but I think they might be fun, especially for a level 1 -1 creature. And this is the Bogart Scout. That's kind of what I'm looking for at the moment, and I'm actually looking at the Amoeba Swarm, because their stealth bonus specifically is for when they're in water. So we'll drop the amoebas in there. This is what I tend to do when I'm building an encounter or a dungeon out from scratch. I will grab a bunch of monsters, just throw them to the side there, and then I can go through them one by one as I think I will use them. Now, normally, there are some creatures I wouldn't use because I know my players. But considering what we're working with, here, so most I can do is 3. So we'll grab a Kappa. I have an idea of what to do with the Kappa. See, I'm considering now. Sea Hag. Grab a Rover Drake. Now, there is going to be a temptation, and this is a little bit of advice, where when you're designing a dungeon, you're going to want to go for a boss encounter, and you'll look at the severe and you go, okay, so I can put the players up against a level +3 monster. Please understand that when you do that kind of thing, you're creating a slug for the players. The boss is gonna hit a lot, the players are gonna hardly ever hit. And it feels bad, man. You are much better off doing just a level +2, which is why I've only grabbed like the maximum level 3 creatures for this level. But things that can commonly hang around. Now, this is supposed to be low. Because this is low for level 1, I can do up to 2 level 0 creatures. them in the water. Now, considering their swim speed and the fact that they're amphibious, I'm a little bit surprised they don't get a stealth bonus in water. There's a part of me that would grant that anyway. Make them invisible. Now, we're going to create a little test person. And the only thing I'm giving him is a torch. Torch is lit. This is a nice, simple encounter room, but having these quarters here, I will tell you now, make players paranoid as hell. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, what we're going to do is we're going to add the walls in for the pillars. Go. Thank you very much for the mild ad revenue. I do appreciate it. So now what we have is our adventurer will come up here. The fish statue will obviously shine out to them first. They'll want to examine it. But as they're examining it, they want to examine the brazier. Our Grindylows can attack from the sides. If we actually put them there, they're going to be a little bit out. Because the plot here is that our hero will come up, examine the brazier or the offering plate, whatever it is, with the statue at the end there. And as they're examining it, as they're distracted, our two Grindylows can strike from either side. Now, this would make for a more severe encounter, but please keep in mind, our little friend here is would not be by himself, and there would be 4 others. But it would be a nasty surprise for whoever kind of examines it first. That's if I put the amoebas in this room. What I probably will do for the moderate level is, because now I'm considering, since we talked about Grindylows so much, we're probably going to do a Grindylow floor. I make no apologies for this. It's going to be Grindylows, a couple of gremlins. We have the Hanover, which I've never used before and I would like to, because they have a little bit of casting. I'm actually considering I might do that dumb thing where you actually, well, it's not a dumb thing, but I'm actually thinking I might have like a Grindylow Shaman or a Sage or a Caster of some sort. Just give it a couple of like thematic spells. And we can use that as our mid-boss. Because I'm thinking the River Drake's going to be our floor boss. Now, as for exits, this is one of those things where I will have to work out in Dungeon Draft a little bit better, but we're going to have one of the struggles I'm going to have with this entire floor is I like symmetry in my dungeons, but it's just not going to make sense for this floor. Delete that. Delete that. Do I plan stuff for specific party compositions? So there are 2 schools of thought when considering something like that. The first one is, if you're homebrewing this for your own home games, you should absolutely cater the level, the dungeon, whatever you're building out. You should cater it to your party. It should inform what you do for treasure. It should kind of inform everything that you do. However, and this is something that comes up a lot, when you're writing an adventure or a dungeon for mass consumption or for retail, essentially, you kind of have to use the scattergun effect, as unfortunate as that is. So you kind of have to design the adventure around the idea that you're going to have a wide and vast array of different options and characters coming to the fray. This is both good and bad. Thank you, Ash. It looks like this first floor is going to be gremlins and Grindylows, with a couple of other aquatic amphibious creatures thrown in for fun. Oh, thank you for subscribe. This is Scribble. That's our boy. Now, I'm not going to go into the full details for adventure notes. You're actually going to get a little bit of insight into how I would do this for just a very casual game. So we go super. Add page. No one wants to watch me write for half an hour, so we're gonna keep this nice and brief. Box text. Two Grindelows. We'll be waiting and hiding. They will strike. First player. That's pretty much it. I mean, this is nice. This is simple. What I actually might do, considering. I currently have the doors set up there, and I'm going to leave them, but know what I'm looking for. I've already got it activated. Beautiful. I'll tell you what, Kill Chrono. This is something I didn't really get to do in Voice of the Colors, because I talked with you about it, and we both decided that the potential for drowning in a first level dungeon would be too much. So design, cave. And then I want the water tool. See, one of the cool things you can do is you can shape it properly. So you can do perfect squares. I would do that sometimes, but you can only really do it with, you can't do it with what we're doing here. Essentially, because we're dealing with a cavern. If we have things that are all like perfect angles and straight lines, it's just not going to make as much sense. Now, considering what we're working with, let's increase that a little bit. Now, I think, considering the conversation we're having, you know what I'm planning here. Do I have reeds? dome. That's a Instead, what we're going to do is going to turn the shadows off again. We're going for a blue theme. So I need some. Crystals come from leaves, okay. That's fine. So we're talking about shallow water and stuff like that, so... That. All right. And once again, this is just a nice, simple encounter room. The other reason I'm doing all these so that they can fit on an A4 sheet of paper is the hope is that anyone who's watching this or anyone who comes across it later on can just download the PNG or the JPEG and just print it out onto their own sheets of paper at home. Or at AlphaWorks or whatever. The idea being that you can just kind of build out your own super dungeon at home if you like. Have something a little bit more variety. Because as much as I personally, and I do personally love, and I forgot to switch it over, I'm so goddamn sorry. I forgot to switch it over. But the idea of the A4 sheets of paper is that as much as I love the huge maps, if you're playing your games at home and you don't have access to like the video screen setups that a lot of people have nowadays, it becomes very difficult to actually put together a dungeon, like a good looking one. And as much as I love the classic not A4 sheets of paper, the classic, blank 1-inch grid, and you use your biros and everything else like that, there is something cool, there's something that really does add to the immersion when you can do stuff like this. Because that was that. Perfect. Now, when I actually put the dungeon notes up for this, one of the things I will absolutely say is that the water is only shallow. The only way players are going to drown is if they're, like, prone in the water. But this is our second room. We're just going to save that. I'm going to call it... Mossy Path. Save, then export. I do like how easy Dungeon Drop makes this, though. That will be the plan. So, a modular game board. So I'm not sure how many people like play at home and stuff like that, but something I figured out a couple of years back was if you print out something like this, stick it to a bit of cardboard, cut it out, and then cover the top with like quick contact paper, you can use your whiteboard markers on that without any issues. Like any issues whatsoever. You can rub it out, you can reuse it, but the beautiful part about this is that it's also very, very cheap. You don't have to use anything too fancy. But yes, the idea is that this is going to be like Casacone or Betrayal at House of the Hill, where the GM can just kind of build out a dungeon from the raw materials they are given. Interconnectivity, I'm not 100% on that. We're going to keep that a little bit fuzzy though. And we go back to Foundry. Let's import our second room. Unfortunately, cool animation effects that they have in Dungeon Draft doesn't actually come over. But I'm fine with that. Now, moderate. See, for a moderate encounter, we can have a -1. We might be pushing it for one of those, so what we might do instead. -1. How's their athletics? Non-existent, so we are going to have to use the Grindelows, I think. What we might do to make this extra spicy is, where's my Amoeba Swarm? There. So what's the weak template going to do? -2. Turn that off. See what we can do. Maybe embed some. So, the problem I'm working with at the moment is if I put it in an Amoeba Swarm, technically speaking, I can only have an Amoeba Swarm and 1 Grindelow. But if I make 2 weak Grindelows and put them in, I can do that, but it'll drop their athletics. So, we are going to do that. Where'd I put my Grindelows? There they are. Now, the idea here is, as Kilcroto suggested, as the players kind of start to come across here. And we'll transition to darkness again. As they come across to like there, or there, the Grindylows will be able to leap from the shadows and shove them into the water. What I'm probably going to put into the notes for this do that now. Creatures. Two Grindylows and an amoeba swarm. Amoeba swarm will be stalking. Waiting for a Grindylow to push someone into the water. Grindylows will be looking for the weakest looking. There's some old advice that the GM who trained me told me, and that was lie, cheat, steal. And that as a GM, sometimes you have to lie to your players, sometimes you have to cheat, and sometimes you have to steal. Don't go too deep into it, but it's relevant for what I'm about to write. Move the amoeba swarm to the different sides, depending on who gets pushed in. Well, see, the idea here is that, because I'll reveal both of these. The idea is that the swarm's going to be at the side here. Now, if our wizard friend is on that side, and he gets pushed in, that's fine. He's also flanked. That's fine. But a problem happens is if he's walking on this side. Give me a second, just go cut the music. If he's walking on this side, then the Grindylows are going to have a little bit too much trouble pushing him into the swarm. If we, as the game master, just in the background move the swarm to the other side, the encounter still works. And you can still do everything that you wanted to do with it. And I think this is something that a lot of game masters need to embrace a little bit more. And that is kind of adapting and swinging with what your players are actually doing. So you may have planned out your encounter, but then the players do things. Now you can either kind of take the L and be like, well, yeah, no, they're just gonna rampage through this encounter now. Or you can do things like I have put down in my notes here, shuffle things around a little bit so it still works and it still makes sense. And that is what's pretty much happening here. Because the idea here, as was suggested, that a Grindylow will attempt to push a player character into the shallow water where an amoeba swarm is waiting. And ideally, that's how I would trigger the encounter. I'm of the camp that I'm a little bit disappointed that surprise rounds no longer exist. I understand why they were taken away, but... just my 2 cents. And yeah, a lot of it is just smoke and mirrors. Once again, though, this is our second room done. And this is also a moderate encounter. Alright. Let's switch back to our dungeon draft. Right. Honestly, there's a part of me that wants to reintroduce them just as a house rule. Alright, the third room. We kind of have a theme going here. It's kind of shallow water swampiness. So what do we kind of want to do for our third room? We are going to need something of a corner at some point. Or something we can put in as a corner. Alright. Nope, hold my K brush. Now, the question is, how much of a bastard do we want to be? I think we want to be a little bit of a bastard. Because remember, our Grindylows are just they're just little guys. So they're having to rely a lot on ambush tactics and narrow corridors and things that kind of work out in their favor. But I believe now that players have had 2 rooms where they've been introduced to the idea of the shallow water, in which it will be difficult terrain if they're walking through it, we can have a couple of sections that are actual, just all-out difficult terrain. How about a combat with a skill challenge and archers behind an acrobatic deflection or something? I can work with that. So, what we'll do with that then? Because I did have a similar idea for something like that. Here's a spitball. The surprised are flat-footed and limit the ambushers to like only 2 actions. That would actually work. Supplies are flat-footed, that's pretty standard, as long as they used stuff for the initiative. Yeah, no, we're gonna create something of a son of a bitch encounter. Now, if I remember how to do this properly. Half tool. Live. Then I don't think I have a waterfall, but let's have a quick look. Objects. Want the book. Alright. Ah, beautiful. Probably not that color though. Let's take out the snap. The blood waterfall. Maybe if I was doing something slightly different. Let's pull out that half tool again. Redo the snap. Because it didn't quite line up the way I wanted it to. I'm being a little bit exact here. Full-aid waterfall. You know what? That's fine. We'll give it one more shot. Alright, that's good. Because a lot of this stuff that's happening in the corners here, players will never see that. As you said, smoke and mirrors. Three. I'm gonna run out of model rooms very quickly. Range to ambush. Then we go back to Foundry. Universal. Transition to darkness. Because the idea here is that this entire level will be in darkness. Because most of our creatures have dark vision. They have no need for light. Now, would and where's that little test guy? See, the problem here for them now with this room, and what makes it a little bit extra dangerous, my idea is I do want this to be a modern encounter. Let's introduce them to one of the new creatures. Speaking of just little guys. So, with this room, the idea is that all of this is difficult terrain for the players. Which is going to make things an absolute bastard when they realize that this cliff face is about 10 feet up and the Grindylows are just going to throw spears at them the entire time. And this kind of encounter is what we would call a spotlight encounter, or what I was taught as a spotlight encounter. Because the people who are really going to do really well in this encounter would be like our martial fighters, our up close and personal. The ones who are really going to do well here are going to be the casters, our ranged attackers. Actually, do I have... I just had a fort. We'll put a Trilobite in there. No, I want to keep to our theme for the time being, but we'll come back to that. Because your fighter comes in, or your barbarian comes in, and they're going to have to get through the difficult terrain, and then they're going to have to climb a cliff. That's going to be a pain in the ass for everyone involved. However, if we have a wizard or a ranger with like archery going on or a gunslinger, they can take the shots from there. But because of the elevation, the Grindylows aren't exactly without options either. They can take cover. And when you take cover, you don't necessarily take the penalty to your ranged attacks. As an added benefit, our Hanover here, our little gremlin friend, has access to Fear. They can only cast it once, but as an early level spell, it's very effective for just giving out Frightened. Because even if the player succeeds, they're going to probably be Frightened 1 at the very least. And with a will save, you can probably tag it like the fighter or the barbarian, as previously discussed, that are trying to climb the cliff. And speaking of, what did I name this? Ranged ambush. Creatures. Two Grindylow and a cliff face is. We'll go 10 feet up. Starting from. Giving them cover. Because the idea here when you're at this much of a low level, especially when you're dealing with creatures with like creature level 0 or -1, the poor guys do not have a great strike bonus. My actual plays are actually a really bad example of this. But really, the only times they're probably going to be hitting will be on the first. Their first strike is probably the only one that has even a decent chance of hitting. So what you should do, as a GM in Pathfinder 2 specifically, is have them be doing different actions. In this case, what our Grindylows would be doing is they would be waiting in wait, they would be stealthing flat to the ground with the distance, and as soon as the players come in, they would start throwing the spears. But the method would be throw a spear, first action, draw a spear for the second action, and then for the third action, they would take cover. And this is absolutely a modern encounter. Now, obviously, creatures with a climb speed are going to have an easier time here. And there's plenty of ways to get that at first level through ancestries and stuff like that, so I wouldn't be particularly worried about this. Likewise, I don't think a monk would have much of an issue either. But, once again, it's first level. And this is what a lot of people would call a terrain challenge encounter. Because it is definitely not in the favor of the players. Alright, just fixing up the walls. And that. What we're gonna do there. Just shoot that out there. That is our third room. Now, another thing. That is a good point. Ninzad, if you really wanted to, you could have some javelins on the ground, or even some spears on the ground. Something like that would give you two things, or at least it will show the players two things. One, in particular, if you just have it like there's some fish or something floating around in the water here, and there's some spears and javelins just floating there as well, a canny player would look at that and go, okay, so someone's been spearfishing or using them for target practice. Because keep in mind, our little dudes here don't have to attack immediately. They can wait. Because ideally, they would wait until the players are as far away as possible to start attacking. But yeah, just having a couple of javelins or spears, just kind of hanging about for the players to pick up will also be a great option. I will also telegraph that great thing that I as a GM am always trying to do, and that is get some weapon variety. I know you love your sword, I know, but please also at least have a ranged option. Especially if you're a fighter. If you're fighting something big, have your sword and shield. If you're fighting small mooks, then you're better off with a bigger weapon. Now, the other thing that I should be doing because this is something of a well-protected area up here. We're going to create some loot. There's a couple of ways that you can do loot distribution. Because the idea here is that the entire level will make up one level, like one actual player level. So by the time they finish all 10 rooms, the players will have gone into level 2. What you can do is have your players, well, for the treasure, you can just kind of figure out how much treasure the players should get across the entire level and divvy that up as you go. Thankfully, however, Paizo was nice enough to introduce treasure by encounter. You can find this in the Game Mastery Guide on page 51. Now, the treasure by encounter kind of dictates how much treasure should be in a pile per encounter, as I said. What I have a tendency to do is I will add these up and then put them all into one hoard at a point where I think it's actually valid. So in this particular case, the idea is that we'll have our loot pile here. Because we've had one low encounter and 2 moderates. We have 49 gold pieces to actually play with, so just as a reminder for myself, because this is first level and the options for the players are kind of sparse. Ideally, you can tell I actually do a lot of consumables. Material filters. Life-size sculpture of by an expert. Okay. Look, I know it's cliched to put the healing potions. Actually, we'll put actual healing potions in there. They're a little bit stronger. I know it's cliche to put the healing potions in loot, but when it comes down to it, it does make sense from the creature's perspective, particularly with creatures such as this. They would have access to basic healing potions and things like that. It means they can go and heal themselves. Now, as the GM, you probably shouldn't have the the monsters using what is intended as loot for the players. But considering this encounter and how it goes, having a reward for the players if they actually do climb up the cliff and have a look, and a little bit of recovery, the healing potions. Now, if you really want to be blunt, however, the reason I put the bedroll into the treasure pile here, and I will not be counting that against the loot. There's a sense of psychology sometimes that you present with loot and you can do with the loot. The idea here is that if you have bedrolls as a part of the loot, then that sends the message to the player that the creatures here use this area to rest. This is where they sleep, this is where they recuperate. Speaking of, let's put some rations in there as well. That way, it's supposed to send a clear signal to the players that they can also use this place to rest. Exactly. Or if you really want, you can... If you really wanted to be nasty, you could give each of the Grindylows a healing potion. And they can use that as a part of the battle. And that would hopefully instruct the players that they might have might have more as well. Is it bad for morale to have the monsters pop healing pods if the players get into a ranged siege battle? Which is why I kind of suggest probably don't have the Grindylows use the healing potions. The only reason I would have them use the healing potions is if you have a very ranged heavy party. For instance, if you have a gunslinger, a wizard, a ranger, and a cleric. Or a bard, actually. A bard would probably rock. So the wizard could use something like Phase Bolt, which ignores circumstance bonus to armor class, which would mean that their cover would be mostly meaningless. A gunslinger gets things like aim shot and sniper's aim, which also negates certain cover bonuses. It's the same with ranger. So if that was the case and that was what they were up against, I would probably have them use healing potions. just so the Grindelos have a little bit of a fighting chance. Otherwise, if you're looking at a standard party composition where you have your fighter, wizard, cleric, and rogue, I wouldn't worry about it. But this is all when it comes down to when you're GMing and you know your table and you know your party and you know who you're working with, you can kind of tailor things to work with them. As for the rest of it, because once again, I'm probably going to ignore the rations and the bedroll, but this would hopefully send the signal to the players that they can safely rest here if they need to. So if they want to do medicine checks or that kind of thing, at this point they will have gone through a low into moderate encounters, so they are probably hurting a little bit. They're probably down some resources. Speaking of, thanks to the suggestion from earlier, gonna add some javelins and a couple of spears. Take also, there's just as a quick thing, I know they give you pretty flat numbers for the treasure tables, but always keep it vague. Like, you don't have to be exact down to the gold piece. I will say, part of the reason I'm doing this is that you could use this for shorter play. Like, if you're getting together with some friends and it's like, hey, we want to play, we don't really want to dig too far deep into a big, massive conspiracy storyline, we kind of just want to do a dungeon delve, that is what this will be for. Or alternatively, if it's a case of, hey, we've been doing this adventure for a while now, can we have a little bit of a break and, you know, just do a basic dungeon dive for a level? Then people can just kind of pull this out and go, oh, here's a 1-level dungeon that we can use. Is it going to be perfect? No, not at all. Hopefully, however, it would be fun. We still got a little bit of treasure to put in here. A lot of it, there's some of it that's just going to be gold and stuff. We might leave that treasure there, because we are starting to run a little bit low on time, and I want to do one last encounter. Alright, now this one's probably going to go south to north, or north to south, depending on your point of view. So what are people thinking? What danger should we inflict upon the players in this room? Considering we're kind of dealing with a little bit of swamp, a little bit of shallow water, a bit of stagnation. By this point, our players will be very well aware of Grindylows, kind of what they're capable of, what they do, and there is a risk of them getting slightly sick of it. So this is probably a good point where we can actually start mixing it up a little bit. I'm just connecting these two up. So, I am open to ideas. I have a couple of things percolating in my own head. Swamp gas? Oh, love it. Okay. I get in trouble when I do what I'm about to do. Don't worry, this isn't going to be a flat room. I'm just thinking of something. Once we go back to Dungeon Draft. I have to check something in the bestiary. Don't at me. Oh god, they still exist. Yep. Nope, they still exist. Hey, so does this work for swamp gas? Like I said, we are absolutely running out of modern encounters. Yeah, no, I like it too. Now, this is where I have to check my encounter table. I could put a yellow musk creeper in there and then a Frawl. Actually, no, I think I know what I'm gonna do here. How are you in the water? Terrible. That's fine. How's your speed? 25. Alright, I need to look at hazards now. No, because there used to be... There used to be a trap in Pathfinder 1, which was basically just like, it's not the full yellow musk creeper, it's just some of the spores. So, yes and no. I can make yellow musk full Grindylows. See, now I'm just having that Lord of the Rings meme where it's like staring at, where Bilbo's staring at the gold ring and being like, yeah, no, why can't I? I need to look at the yellow musk creeper again. The musk ring. I'm pretty sure that would be very different things to very different people. To a yellow musk frog. Don't. just don't. Deer is adjacent to the yellow musk creeper. It stays still and doesn't act. Alright. Limb extension? I'm sorry, what? Limb extension. Trigger. The yellow musk foal is reduced to 4 HP or fewer. Creeper tendrils tear through the thrall's limbs, causing its forearms to tear loose. The thrall's melee reach increases by 5 feet. Oh, I love that. Yeah, no, we're gonna do it. Alright. It is very Resident Evil. This is what I hate about level 1 though, just so we're all perfectly clear. Okay. So we go back to Dungeon. Now I have an idea of what we're doing. So we get out water brush. Because once again, players are not going to see behind the walls. Now we go options, scatter tools, push. Actually, no. How about we be extremely obvious about this? Oh, you're just gonna make me do it manually? Alright, I don't mind. It's there. And then just in the corner or something, we'll have turn off the snap. That one. One of the most important lessons that I learned from Minecraft when doing stuff like this. Depth. Now, as previously established, our shallow water is difficult terrain. It will also be difficult terrain for our thralls. Thrall attack. Room 4. The expert. Then we go back to our foundry. Getting very used to all this. Measure 10, 10. This needs to be closer. Now, I'm moving them in closer because they are going to be a little bit slower in the water. And they don't necessarily have to be a little bit closer for him. But here's a fun thing that you can do. Find your second edition. We're going to delete those 3. Go into him. I can make him small. And it does nothing to the stats whatsoever. If you really wanted to, you could go into the picture files, of course, and then change them around to being the Grindylows. And if you're feeling really creative, you could probably, Photoshop the Grindylows with, like, green vines and stuff sticking out of them. But that is completely up to you. I will always say that you're always going to have enough trouble GMing without also having to deal with things like custom art and stuff like that. Now let's fix up these walls. Now, just as I'm going through this, and I am going to be closing up soon because it's almost midday. I'm so glad those days are gone, Jarach. I really am. As someone who ran Pathfinder 1 from its release pretty much to when it ended, I am truly glad that those days are gone. No, we want that. Give me doors. The worst one was if you're playing, well, you would know this, if you're playing a small-sized character and having to recalculate all your weights and everything else like that. Holy shit, that's too much more work. No, don't make me do that. Don't make me math too much. That. Yep, that's looking good. Full attack. Low. Creatures. Three small-sized. Describe them as being Grindylows. Running out of them. If I was doing this for publishing and stuff like this, I would absolutely have things like a box text. I would also go into a little bit more detail about what's going on here. But considering it is as it is for now, before I put all this up on the Patreon, I will go through and clean it up. Just because I'm that kind of person. But the idea here is that our players will come into this room, they will have a look around, and they will go, okay, so there's a bunch of stagnant water, and there's bushes covered with like yellow musky flowers and vines and mushrooms and stuff. Old-time players and veterans will immediately look at that and go, oh shit, we're going to be dealing with yellow musk creepers and thralls. And this is intentional. There's a bunch of discourse online about how meta knowledge is bad for the game. You want players to have surprises. And it's like, I agree and also disagree. It's one of those subjects that has a lot of nuance, in particular in regards to stuff like this. Like, if players go up against a minotaur, like they walk into a maze, they hear hoofs, they hear the snorting, and they hear rampaging towards them, they're going to think minotaur. And having the players just have the characters just pretend like they don't know what a minotaur is kind of dumb in my own mind. And conversely, when it comes to yellow musk creepers, like if a player looks at this scene and goes, oh shit, yellow musk creeper, then it's entirely possible the character would also know. Right, like, and you can, as a GM, you can also screw around with it. Like, there's an obvious thing where players walk into a room and you describe it as like every surface is covered in spider webs. There's old spider webs in the corners and there's a fine layer of dust that covers anything. And players will immediately think spiders. But you can screw around with that and have other creatures in there. But sometimes, especially at early levels, it's just good for the players to walk into a room, immediately know what they're going to be fighting, and be able to prepare accordingly. Like, unraveling the mystery of a dungeon itself is a part of the fun. Like you said, Jarraj, connecting the dots as a player is also a part of the puzzle and part of the fun. Now, I'm pretty much out of time because it's midday and I should have lunch and do a couple of other things. But next week, because we've had plenty of activity in chat, I'm guessing people want me to continue next week. I'm hoping anyway. When we come back to this next week, we'll probably do I'm thinking we might have one of our severe encounters as the one with the yellow musk creeper. Because I think that will make a lot of sense. And I think our floor boss is going to be the rope drake. But I'm hoping to get through most of this first floor next week. Otherwise, like I said, I'll probably put these first ones up in the Discord. Otherwise, I'm still getting the Patreon set up. Please subscribe on Twitter if you follow on Twitter. Actually, let me put the socials up. Follow me on Twitter and everything else like that. I will probably actually put the VOD for this up on the YouTube channel. I'm not sure if I'm going to cut it up or not. We'll figure that part out. Because I think there were some interesting things that we went through today. Otherwise, I will have these maps and everything else up wherever I put them, when I put them up. When they do go onto Patreon, I'll have them in separate entries. I'll also clean up the readouts and everything else like that. Otherwise, I hope you had fun. I had fun actually kind of going through and starting to build out a dungeon. This is not as complex and thematic as you would get with other ones, but look, sometimes you just want an easy dungeon, yeah. At some point, probably next week, I'm actually going to print some of these out and actually put them together and get some photos together of what they look like when they're all put together. Otherwise, we'll be back probably the same time next week, 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, to continue Let's Build a Superdungeon. Otherwise, Hoist the Colors is on Saturday afternoon, 5:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. Abomination Vaults, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We'll be continuing both of those, pending disasters and crises and all that other stuff, but we should be good to go. Otherwise, if anyone has a suggestion for a raid, we'll have a quick look for that. Otherwise, I do have, in the future, I do have other streams and other limited plays I want to be doing. Waffles is... yeah, let's go raid Waffles. I like waffles and maple syrup. They're currently doing an indie TTRPG one-shot, Tea and Cake or Death, which sounds like fun. They're wholesome people. I'll just put that out there. Waffles, maple syrup. Did I spell that right? They do have follower or subscriber chat on, so if you want to say hi or anything like that, feel free to follow them. They're well deserving. I have talked to them on numerous occasions. I had the pleasure of meeting them at PAX Unplugged last year. And look, they're absolutely wonderful people. So, we're going to raid into them. Tell them who sent you. Tell them I said hi. Otherwise, I hope you have a good day, a good night, a good week, no matter where you are in the world. And remember, as always, we are the storytellers. Good night, everyone.